Hi PGCE students, my name's Karen and I'm here to talk to you about nonviolent discipline in the classroom. I wish I was meeting with you in person, but because of COVID we're doing this via video. So I know you're going on teaching prac soon, and teaching prac can be hard. A particular challenge for teachers is not so much how to teach their subject, but how to manage the behavior of the children in our classes. And if we don't get this right, life as a teacher can be very difficult. My aim in this video is to tell you about peace discipline and the resources which are available to you, and then to look at a few practical tips which will help you on your teaching prac. A bit about peace discipline. For 16 years, peace discipline ran as a series of workshops for parents, teachers, childcare workers, anybody who has or works with children. And what I taught in those workshops is nonviolent discipline skills. At this stage, I'm making the content of peace discipline available for free via a website and a YouTube channel. On the website, you can find a toolkit of nonviolent discipline skills which can be used in the home or in the classroom. You can also find a list of what not to do. You can find information about upcoming events such as workshops and talks. And under the research tab, you can find a paper on nonviolent discipline options, a research summary, basically a lot of information on the evidence which underpins the skills which are taught in peace discipline and many other skills that people have used to teach good behavior or to manage difficult behavior in children. So if you're interested in the research, then that's the place to look. But for many people, you'll be looking for more accessible, briefer information on what tools are available and how we can use them, and that you can find in the toolkit section of the website. Under the video tab, you'll find links to the YouTube channel. Now, what I'm aiming for eventually is to make all the content of peace discipline and more available in short, accessible YouTube videos. And so on the Peace Discipline YouTube channel, you'll find the videos we've posted so far. I'm hoping you'll take a look at these before you go on teaching prac. How it works: you go to the Peace Discipline channel, you'll find that a welcome video opens immediately and automatically. It's 1 or 2 minutes. At the end of that welcome video, another video will show on the screen. If you have time, you can click on that video, and similarly at the end of that video, another video will appear. The videos are set up to lead into each other in this way in a logical order and take you through the Peace Discipline course as much as is available so far. I will continue to post videos. If you would like me to notify you when I post a video, perhaps you can email me at karen@peacediscipline.com so that I can include you on my mailing list and send new videos directly to your inbox when they are posted. So that's karen@peacediscipline.com. So at the moment, you can get more complete information on the website and a lot of the introductory information in videos on YouTube. What I'd like to do now is introduce you first to some very important principles of peace discipline, and secondly, give you some practical tips to manage behavior on your upcoming teaching prac. Let's look at the principles first. First of all, children need to feel safe with us. If they don't feel safe with us, they won't be able to learn and focus properly. A number of videos already on the YouTube channel deal with this important aspect of discipline. Secondly, our connection with the children is very, very important. And that is part of what's going to help them feel safe. Perhaps the most important ingredient of discipline is not one particular skill, but a very important factor that helps children feel connected to you and safe with you, and that is attunement. Now, attunement is when your responses fit with the child's needs and signals. I'm taking the approach in peace discipline that any given skill or any tool in the toolkit is not a good or bad tool in itself. Rather, is a good tool if it fits with what the child is really needing at that point. So attunement means tuning in to the needs and signals of the child and then matching your response to that as best you can. Will you always know how to respond? Of course not. None of us always know how to respond. Part of the process of attunement may be a bit of trial and error, trying several tools and watching to see how well the child responds. So I hope you'll watch this series of videos on attunement. Although I hope you'll watch all of the discipline videos, I especially hope you'll watch this series because it really is the heart of good discipline. Another important principle is a sense of containment. Here again, you can find videos explaining this concept better and giving examples and telling stories that relate to a sense of containment. So what is a sense of containment? A sense of containment is the child's sense that you, teacher or parent, can handle their behavior. And it makes a big difference. When a child has a sense of containment, they don't engage in as much aggressive or coercive behavior because they know they won't get away with it. They know that you know how to deal with that behavior. Now, I won't go into this here because I've gone into in detail in another video, especially looking at the experience of new teachers. Because all of us know that the same class can act completely differently with a student teacher to how they act with an experienced teacher. So I hope you'll have a look at our videos on a sense of containment. You'll find when watching the videos that they're aimed at parents as well as at teachers. So although some of the stories will come from the school environment, I have a background in teaching and I've done a lot of work with teachers. Other videos and stories will be more relevant to parents. Does this mean that you should skip those videos? Absolutely not. A very important part of teaching, and one you may not have thought of, is the way the teacher manages the relationship with the parents of children that they teach. And so the more understanding there is of the parent, the better. You'll even find that some parents will approach you as a teacher to ask your advice about parenting their child. Some parents may not have access to the professional help they need. While many parents may not be able to see a psychologist, social worker, or occupational therapists, most parents will at some stage have a chance to talk to their child's teacher. And this is something I feel very strongly about. Teachers are often underestimated as agents of social change. We can make a big difference. We have a large circle of influence, and we need to use that wisely and consciously. The other reason I hope you will watch all the videos, even if they seem more related to parents, is that none of us are learning about discipline from a blank slate. We live in South Africa, where most of us grew up with corporal punishment, hitting, shouting, threatening, punitive methods of discipline. If we take those tools out the toolkit, for many of us, the toolkit left looking a little empty. And so, like I say, we're not starting from a blank slate. We've all learned about discipline already, but unfortunately, we've learned a lot of things which we now need to unlearn. Looking back, many of us do not have a model of non-violent discipline. And so it's useful for teachers to get an idea of what it could be like in a home situation, even if you don't yet have your own children. Right, now for some tips for your teaching prac. First thing I'm going to suggest is to use your teaching prac to observe and learn from experienced teachers. And something I would suggest asking them about is about structure. Perhaps you could ask the teacher you're observing about what rules they have, which they find particularly useful in their classroom situation. It may be something simple, such as nobody opens the teacher's cupboard, and yet it might make quite a difference. It may be something completely different, like no insults in the class, or may have good suggestions about phrasing rules positively, such as treat everybody with respect. Experienced teachers have usually built up a number of explicit instructions or rules for children, which help them to create an ordered environment in the classroom. And it's worth finding out what these are and weighing up whether you would like to use similar rules. It can be difficult learning about discipline simply by watching experienced teachers, because when you watch experienced teachers, they don't seem to be doing discipline. This is because children in their class already feel contained with them and therefore do not exhibit as much challenging behavior with that teacher. So I would suggest taking some time to talk to the experienced teachers and asking them about some of the rules and structure they have in their class and what they do to deal with challenging behavior. It's not to say that you'll like all the answers or want to repeat what these teachers do, but you may also find some really good advice that you can follow. Aside from rules, there are other aspects of structure that a teacher might be implementing, such as a line order, taking turns, a roster, or a seating plan, and you might not know about these if you do not ask about them. One teacher had a really good idea of how to use structure to help children in that time when they had finished their work and may start getting up to mischief. She noticed that this was a particular trouble spot in the class, that when certain children had finished their work, they tended to do things she didn't want them to do, such as talk, get out of their seat, disturb other children, etc. So she made a chart which had the heading, Things I Can Do When I'm Finished My Work. And then she had a list of things that they could do when they finished their work. This said things like talk to a friend, ask for another worksheet, read a book quietly, finish some other homework. When the class was busy with an exercise, she would put this chart on the board, and she had some magnets which she would put next to the things that they were allowed to do. Talk to a friend did not usually have a magnet next to it. And the children would eagerly look at it to see, can I do other homework today? Or must I ask for another worksheet? Can I read a book? She loved seeing what they were allowed to do, and she found it made a big difference to be that clear and explicit about what the children could and couldn't do once they finished their work. Other teachers have found it super useful to do quite a lot of preparation and explicit instruction around what to do when the class is transitioning from one activity to another, because transition times are often times where things can be more difficult. Here's another skill you might want to use in the classroom, and that is to give a timeout from something specific that the child is not handling. So this is different from an exclusionary timeout where you might send the child out of the venue. This kind of timeout, called a non-exclusionary timeout, is simply a timeout from something which the child is not managing. An example would be, you see two friends come into the class and sit down next to each other, and they seem to want to talk to each other. You might say, I don't know if that's going to work. I think you're going to end up talking to each other. The children will probably say, no, we won't talk. We just want to sit together. And you might say, let's see how that goes. When they forget a little later and slip into talking to each other when they're supposed to be quiet, you might give them a timeout from sitting together, such as asking them to sit in two different seats on opposite ends of the classroom from each other until the end of that lesson. What you'll find is that when you use this kind of timeout, such as a timeout from participating in a game because they're disrupting the game, or a timeout from sitting next to a certain friend because they always talk to that friend, you'll find that children miss the thing you've taken away and want it back. Later on, you can give them another chance and say, let's see if you manage. If you can manage, then you can sit there. Or if you can manage, then you can join the game. What I usually found with this is that children would manage much better and much more consciously because now they're motivated. They've learned experientially that when they don't cooperate, they lose a certain privilege or freedom. And they learn that regaining that takes a little bit more self-control and proving that they can manage the situation. So this skill not only interrupts a challenging behavior and stops it from happening because you have removed the child from the situation, it also encourages self-discipline. Another great skill to use in the class is the skill of making amends or making up for something that a child has done wrong. A very simple way of doing this, and something which the children experience as a very logical consequence, is to ask children to make up for time they have wasted in the class. You could ask a few specific children who've been disruptive, or perhaps if the whole class was not settling down, you could ask the whole class to make up some time. How this would work, let's say you go into the class and they're not very settled. They're talking and moving around and you want to start the lesson. You ask them to settle down, but they don't settle down. They keep making a noise and keep talking. It may be tempting to raise your voice and start shouting and threatening detention. This is completely unnecessary. I'm happy to say that shouting and threatening are not active ingredients of good discipline. Try this instead. Class, we need to start working now. I'm going to count to 3, and when I get to 3, you are quiet and ready to start. If you are not quiet, you can carry on talking, but then I'm going to be timing how much time you take, and I'm going to ask you to make that time up in the break or after school, because that's our lesson time and I need it to teach. So I'm going to ask for it back. So I'm going to count to 3 and you're nice and quiet, or you can keep talking, then you'll owe me some time. 1, 2, 3. What you'll find is that children will actually start going shh, 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 shushing each other and getting quiet as quickly as they can. If you just say to them, quiet class, they will carry on talking. Once it costs them something, once you set up the environment so that it puts them in the best position to be quiet, they will be quiet. So that's what you're doing. Rather than shouting or threatening, you're setting the environment up so that it puts them in the best position to cooperate with you. If you think about what it's like from a child's perspective, if a teacher's just nagging you to be quiet, but there's absolutely no other consequences, what puts you in the best position? Talk to your friends a little longer and do less lesson time, especially if you don't really like the subject that the teacher is teaching. When the teacher says, I'll count to 3, and after that, any time you spend, you owe me back, what puts you in the best position? Quiet by 3, because now it's going to cost you something. This is very different from the coercive approach in which the teacher says, I'm keeping you in for an hour. I'm keeping you in for 2 hours. Well, one of the differences is less punishment for the teacher when you're only keeping the children in for 5 minutes because they only took 5 minutes to settle down. Another of the differences is that for the children, they're very much in control of how much time they're going to spend. How much time they take is how much time they need to give back. So they're very likely to exercise self-control and keep quiet. One more skill I'd like to mention is the group contingency. A group contingency is a reward not only for an individual child, but for the whole group. The good behavior game is perhaps the best example. Research has shown that group contingencies are a particularly powerful tool for teachers to use. I'm not going to give a lot of explanation about the group contingency. How it works is children are either divided into teams or work with the whole class as a team. And they gain or lose points according to each child's behavior. Perhaps there are points given for certain forbidden behaviors. And how it works is that if one child engages in something they're not supposed to do, such as shouting out, the whole team gets a point. The team has to stay below a certain number of points, such as below 5 points by the end of the lesson, in order to qualify for a reward. Reward might be points for the whole team, which add up to some treat or privilege. This skill harnesses the power of peer relationships to get the children to cooperate. And research has shown really amazing things about the good behavior game. If you would like to know more about using group rewards for children, please have a look at the website under the reward section, or have a look at the research summary or research paper under the research tab on the website. There are many more tools and a lot more to teach on the topic of nonviolent discipline. I hope that gives you some inspiration as you go on your teaching prac. I wish you well, not only on your teaching prac, but in your career as a teacher. It's an awesome profession. Thank you for choosing to dedicate your life to working with children. I hope you'll have a rewarding experience, knowing that you can truly make a difference. So I wish you well. If you would like to find out more, visit the Peace Discipline website and mail me at karen@peacediscipline.com if you'd like me to add you to the mailing list and send new videos directly to your inbox. Coaching is also available for parents and for teachers. You can email me at karen@peacediscipline.com. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.